Welcome to Average Joe's Pool. Now there are a wide selection of pool balls available from Aramith. Which one should you be choosing? Well, one of the key factors that separates the lower end balls from Aramith's top tier balls is the vitrification layer. But what exactly is that, and does it actually matter? Well, we're going to find that out and a lot more besides as we take a look at Aramith's cheapest set to feature the vitrification layer. Welcome to Aramith Premiums. So the balls that we're going to be reviewing in this video are the Aramith Premiums, which have been kindly supplied to us for review direct from Aramith. And if you're not already familiar with the Aramith brand, Aramith are the world's leading producers of phenolic resin pool balls. And Aramith are located in Belgium, as is their factory, so all of their balls are made in Belgium. And when it comes to Aramith ball sets, they currently produce 6 different sets, and they vary in price from $70 all the way through to $485. And the set that we have here, the Premiums, they sit pretty much bang in the middle. The current pricing on this set is $200. If you're interested in buying yourself a set of Aramith balls, we will add Amazon links into the video description, not only for the Premiums that we have here, but for all other Aramith sets as well. And so if this video is helpful for you, please be sure to help support what we do here at Average Joe's Pool. Please be sure to click on those Amazon links. So now let's take a bit of a more in-depth look at these balls and find out precisely what makes them unique amongst the Aramith product lineup.
All right, let's not stand around. We've got work to do.
So the Aramith Premiums come supplied in this rather fetching green box. It does come completely shrink wrapped, and the shrink wrap has the Aramith logos. And the Aramith Premiums, just like all sets of Aramith balls, are manufactured from genuine phenolic resin. If you're fairly new to pool, you've probably heard the term phenolic resin, but perhaps you're not 100% sure what it actually is. Well, all pool balls are made from resins. It tends to be that cheaper pool balls are traditionally made from poly resins, whereas what we have here is phenolic resin. And essentially, phenolic resin is a particularly hard and hard-wearing type of resin, which makes it ideal for use in pool balls. In fact, so much so that the WPA require that all balls to be used in professional tournaments must be made of phenolic resin. When it comes to phenolic resins, they do tend to be a little gentler on your pool table cloth. The reason being that as the poly resin balls wear down, they tend to lose their shine quite quickly. And this in turn adds to extra drag on the cloth and makes the cloth wear just that little bit quicker. Now there's no question that phenolic resin balls are definitely more expensive than poly resin balls. But phenolic resin balls should last you for decades, and that's something that you can't really say when it comes to those poly resins. So phenolic resin balls are definitely the serious pool player's choice. Yes, they are a little bit more expensive, but they are somewhat of an investment. And if it helps you save a little bit of money over time on your cloth as well, that's a bonus. So there's no question that when it comes to the game of pool, phenolic resin is definitely the way forward. However, to further complicate things, there are even several different types of phenolic resin. For example, Aramith themselves, across their 6 different ball sets, actually use 3 different types of phenolic resin. And what you'll find on Aramith's cheaper sets, they tend to use Aramith's Premier resin. And on their very top tier sets, they use what's known as Super Aramith Pro resin. And on their tournament sets, they use not only that Super Aramith Pro resin, but they also add an extra bit of technology in there known as Duramith. Whereas when it comes to the Aramith Premiums, what we have here is a resin that's completely exclusive to this ball set. These use Aramith Premium resin. And that brings us on to one of the special features that we find on this resin, and that's known as the vitrification layer. And that's a feature that you're not going to find on any of Aramith's cheaper sets which use the Aramith Premier resin. Whereas what we have here, that vitrification layer, is found on all of Aramith's top sets as standard. But what exactly is it? Well, it's essentially a layer that's formed during the curing process, and it's just 0.6 of a millimeter thick. And that extra vitrification layer is designed specifically to aid the balls in their durability. And what that actually means is that balls that feature this extra layer are that little bit extra tougher and more resistant to things like scratches and scuffs. And so in theory, balls that do feature this extra layer should last you even longer than sets that don't. And remember, this is Aramith's cheapest set to feature the vitrification layer. So when we're talking cosmetics for the Aramith Premiums, as you can see, what we have here is definitely a very traditional looking pool ball set. So the colours that we have in this set are definitely 100% what you'd expect to see from a traditional set. And design wise, also very traditional. What we have on these striped balls is a white circle with the number on the inside. And the cue ball that's included in this set, this is a non-spotted cue ball, but you will note that it does have one single blue Aramith logo. So now we've got a good feel for exactly what this ball set is. We need to move on to the technical tests. Let's start with weight. So for test number 1, we'll be weighing the balls on a calibrated scale to check that all balls meet the WPA requirements, and also for consistency across the set. And the WPA states that balls should weigh between 5.5 and 6 ounces. And as we've come to expect from Aramith, every one of these balls hit the WPA specifications. And our premiums came in with an average ball weight of 5.849 ounces. And the heaviest ball in our set was the number 2 ball, which weighed in at 5.878 ounces. Our lightest ball was the 9 ball, and that came in at 5.830 ounces. So overall, this gives us a variance across the set of just 0.048 ounces, or 0.82%, which really is an amazing result and shows us just how well matched this set is. And for reference, if we compare the premiums to other phenolic ball sets that we have reviewed in the past, we can see how good this result actually is. Now we do have to remember that every set will be slightly different, but for our test sets, this places the premiums as the 3rd best match set we've ever tested, coming in just a touch behind Tournament Black and the Dynaspheres Rhodium. And for a ball set at this mid-range price, this truly is exceptional, scoring the premiums an easy 5 out of 5 stars for weight. And for test number 2, we'll be using a calibrated micrometer to once again check against the WPA requirements and also for consistency. And the WPA states that balls must measure 2 1/4 inches, which is 57.15 millimeters, with a permitted tolerance as shown here. And once again, the premiums excelled and easily hit the WPA requirements, with an average ball size of 57.174 millimeters. And the largest ball in our set was the number 2 ball at 57.224 millimeters, whereas our smallest ball was the number 3, which measured 57.125 millimeters. And this gives us a set variance of 0.099 millimeters, which is just 0.17%. And if we compare this to other phenolic resin sets that we've tested, whilst remembering that this is based solely on our test sets and that there will be natural variation between sets, that puts these in at 6th place. And you may note that the result on these is close to identical to the result on the Aramith Premiers, which also happen to be the closest set to these for price. So the premiums score themselves an outstanding 4.5 stars out of 5 for size.
It's a challenge, all right. Challenge to my training.
So we've now done all of the technical tests, but of course there really is no substitute for actual play testing, and that's precisely what we're going to look at now. And all products that we review here at Average Joe's Pool, we always ensure have a minimum of 5 hours full use on the table before we formulate an opinion, to make sure we can give them a fair and accurate review. So it's now time to let these premiums fly. What do you say? Let's play. When it comes down to the performance of Aramith balls, we do tend to have very high expectations. And the reason for that is simply because Aramith products tend to be such high quality, and also they take their quality control very, very seriously. And thankfully the Aramith Premiums are certainly no exception. What we have here is a fantastic ball set that plays perfectly. This set definitely has a very solid feel to it and a great noise, and the roll of these balls is absolutely spot on. So quite simply, for performance, with the possible exception of Aramith Continentals, Aramiths really don't make a bad set of pool balls. And the Premiums definitely join their ranks as one of the best sets that they make. So as well as being a fantastic set to play with, one thing that I did notice on the cue ball, this is a particularly good cue ball when it comes to chalk retention. This retains very little chalk. So that's definitely a big bonus when it comes to playing with this set, and that's definitely going to save you the headache of having skid, also known as cling or kick. Now one thing we should bear in mind when it comes to the Aramith Premium set is these use Aramith's Premium resin, and they are the only set that Aramith produce that actually uses that resin. So what we have here is somewhat unique amongst the Aramith lineup. And the Aramith Premiums are the cheapest set in the Aramith lineup to feature the vitrification layer, which we're going to cover a little bit more in quality. And so because these are the cheapest balls to have that additional feature, I was quite interested to see how these would perform in comparison to the Aramith Premiers, which don't have that layer, and of course the Aramith Tournaments and Super Aramith Pros, the more expensive sets that do. When we previously reviewed the Aramith Premier set, we did note that the feel of those balls was slightly different to the upper tier sets. It was very, very close, but there is a slight subtle difference. So I was very interested to get a feel for these balls and see if they lent more towards the Aramith Premier resin or more towards those top tier sets. I must say that overall these do feel more similar to the Aramith Tournaments than they do to the Aramith Premiers. So having that extra layer, that vitrification layer, perhaps does add a little touch to the performance. But it should be pointed out that those differences between those sets really is very small indeed. And at the end of the day, all Aramith sets really are a pleasure to play with. There's a reason why they are the leader when it comes to production of phenolic resin balls. And if you're a little bit limited on budget and you simply can't justify the expenditure of going all the way up to those Aramith top tier sets, but you want to get the performance as close as humanly possible, then these fit the bill. And at the end of the day, what we have here is a set that's going to be so close to those Aramith Tournaments when it comes to performance that unless you're a professional player, you're really not going to notice the difference. They are that close. So let's go ahead and score this premium set of balls for performance. There's simply no denying that the Premiums are an amazing set to play with. And despite these using their own unique Aramith resin, having the vitrification layer does change the overall feel just a hair. And these do feel closer to Aramith's top tier tournament sets than the Premiers, which are Aramith's closest set to these price wise. So this scores the Premiums an awesome 4.5 stars out of 5 for performance. Now, one of the first things that you'll notice when it comes to the Aramith Premiums is the quality that we have here for the colours. All of the colours that we have here are super rich and deep, including the dark colours, and this set definitely has a very punchy look to it. One of the key features of the Aramith Premiums is that they have that vitrification layer, and remember this is the cheapest set in the entire Aramith lineup that actually has that additional feature. And this additional layer is actually designed for greater durability. So in theory, these balls should last longer than balls that do not feature this layer. So in theory, of course, it's a great thing to have, but it does bring with it some unique characteristics. And the main trade-off when it comes to that vitrification layer is that balls that feature this tend to have a slightly blurry appearance to the number. It's like we've got a slight shadow around the number. Now, of course, remember this is not the only set to feature the vitrification layer. We also have the Super Aramith Pros, which are considerably more expensive, and also Aramith's top tier tournament set that are a lot more expensive. So all of these sets above this have this as standard. However, we do need to take into account that we do have a couple of different types of resin. On the Aramith Premiums, we use premium resin, whereas on the Super Aramith Pros and the Tournaments, they use Super Aramith Pro resin. And one of my key concerns when it came to this particular set, I was concerned that the blurriness that we have to the numbers might be slightly increased because we have that different type of resin compared to the top end sets. And I must say that yes, on these balls we do have a slightly blurrier finish to those numbers. Now, blurry is perhaps not the correct terminology to use. The actual number itself is actually perfectly clear, but you can see a slight shadow around the edge of those figures. Now, it's important to remember that the Super Aramith Pros and the Aramith Tournaments, which also have that vitrification layer, do also have a slight blur to their numbers as well. However, I would say that on the premiums, they are a touch more blurry than they are on the more expensive sets. But I should point out that yes, we do have a very slight blur to those numbers, but it doesn't actually take anything away from them. The numbers are perfectly readable, and it's really only noticeable that they have a slight blur when you're looking at them from a few inches away. When you're looking at it from a few feet away, you wouldn't see it at all. So with regards to numbers, not really an issue at all. However, there is another issue that might be more of a concern for some people, and that's the simple fact that on our stripe balls, where we have our white poles going into the coloured stripe, where those two meet, we do also have that slight blur. And again, this is a feature that you will find on all of Aramith's more expensive sets, including the Tournaments. However, on the Tournaments, for example, there is a slight blur to it, but it's definitely a lot crisper than what we're seeing on our premiums. And I must say that this is a feature that I initially thought I would absolutely hate. But I've got to say that overall it gives the set a kind of slightly soft focus look to them. The set overall has a slightly softer appearance. Now, of course, that will come down to personal preference, but it's actually a characteristic that I particularly like. It does give this set a slightly unique look. Now, that said, the only balls that I thought were affected negatively by this would be perhaps the orange ball, where we have quite a strong contrast between the two colours, and also the number 9, where the colours are very close together. So of course on our 9 ball we have white and yellow, both those colours very, very close together, so that blurry line really looks a little bit odd on the 9 ball. But this certainly isn't a flaw in this set. This is just kind of one of the natural characteristics that you're going to find when it comes to that vitrification layer. And like I say, I actually really like the look of this set. And of course we're going to have the added bonus of having that extra durability because they have that layer. So from my perspective, what we have here is a high quality set with a great look and also a cue ball that's really good at resisting chalk. So let's go ahead and give these their score for quality. The quality of Aramith ball sets really is second to none, and the premiums are no exception. The unique premium resin adds the benefit of the vitrification layer, but in turn does give the set an overall softer look and feel which some players may not appreciate. But from a quality perspective, there's nothing here of any real note really to complain about, scoring them a strong 4 stars out of 5 for quality. So at $200, the Aramith Premiums sit pretty much bang on the middle of the Aramith lineup. And when you look at the Aramith range, perhaps the strongest competitor to our Aramith Premiums, yes, the name is very similar, the Aramith Premiers. And the Aramith Premiers are very close to price to the Premiums. Premiums at $200, the Premiers $183. So we're only talking a $17 difference between those two sets. And so if your budget sat around the $200 mark, then you've got 2 great Aramith sets to choose from. But which one is the right one for you? Well, the main advantage that the Premiums have over the Premiers is, of course, that this set do feature the vitrification layer that we don't have on the Premiers. And so the trade-off that we have there is essentially our Premiers are absolutely pin sharp when you look at the numbers and the contrast between the white poles and coloured stripes. But the biggest factor to bear in mind is that these two sets are made from different resins. We have the Aramith Premiers made from Aramith Premier resin and the Premiums from Aramith Premium. And remember that that extra layer, that vitrification layer, is designed for durability. So on the slightly cheaper Aramith Premiers, yes, they should last you at least 10 years. However, on this set, with that added layer, they could be good for 20 or more years. So from that perspective, that makes that additional expenditure of $17 a very wise investment. And so the personal choice between those two sets is likely to come down to which you actually prefer the look of. But both are excellent sets, but I think with the extra layer, that $17 is more than justified, especially when we remember that the next set up from our premiums, which are the Super Aramith Pros, that also have that additional layer, but yes, they are made from a different resin again. Those are $329 compared to $200. So we're definitely getting a feature that is more reserved for those high-end sets, but we're getting it at the mid-range. So if you think that you can live with the slightly quirky look that this set has, then these could well indeed be one of Aramith's best value sets. So let's go ahead and give them their score for value. When it comes down to sheer bang for your buck, the premiums really do excel. Yes, they are a touch more expensive than the premiers, but likely worth the extra investment if you value that vitrification layer. So what we have here is a set with features that are closing in on Aramith's top tier sets, but at a mid-range price. And so it's full marks for the premiums, 5 stars out of 5 for value. And so next we need to award the Aramith Premiums with an official Average Joe's rating. And to do this, we take our 5 scores from across our 5 test categories, and then we'll use these to calculate the overall average. And the Aramith Premiums are looking mighty fine as they cross the finish line with an outstanding 4.6 stars, which earns them our coveted Average Joe's Sizzler Award, which is reserved only for the very finest of products which score 4 stars or more. And so if you want to buy an amazing set of phenolic resin balls but can't quite stretch to Aramith's top of the range sets, then these really do come pretty close and also offer an exceptional option at a fantastic price. So when it comes to Aramith's premium set, are they worthy of your consideration? Well, the bottom line is we have to remember that these do have that vitrification layer, and that's only found on Aramith's top tier sets, and the Aramith Tournaments are more than double the price that we have on the premiums. And even the cheaper Super Aramith Pro set are still $130 more than what we have here. So if you can see the value of having that vitrification layer and your budget is a little bit tight, then really these have to be on your shopping list. Speaking of which, if you are on a tight budget, do remember that Aramith do produce more budget orientated sets. And the cheapest set that Aramith produce are the Aramith Continentals, but really we're going to set those aside because they aren't even vaguely in the same league as these. And then up from that we do have the Aramith Crowns, an excellent set that offers fantastic value at $119. And then up from that again, sat just below the premiums, we do have the Aramith Premiers at $183. And we have done reviews on all of those sets, so if you want to check those out, we'll add some links to those videos in the video description for you. And please remember, if you are interested in buying yourself a set of Aramith balls, then we will be adding Amazon links for all Aramith balls, including the Aramith Premiums, into the video description for you. And so if this video turns out to be helpful for you in any way, can you please help to support us in return? Please click on our Amazon links. So thank you for joining us here at Average Joe's Balls, very much appreciated. We always ask before you leave, you take 1 second out of your busy day, please at least hit that like button for us. And whilst you're there, if you like what we do, why not also click on subscribe and switch on notifications, and you'll find out about all of our upcoming videos. So thank you once again, and until next time, catch you later, Navigator.
Any more of your funny jokes, you got me to answer to.